Greetings. In this video, I want to talk to you about why you shouldn't listen to Dan Bilzerian. Now, I guess before I get into it, I want to say I don't have anything against him personally, and this is certainly not an attack on him personally. You guys should know that I am all about love the sinner but hate the sin, and that's really what my main rub with Dan is. And it's what I call the Hugh Hefner complex, or the Hugh Hefner syndrome, where people think, and it's not just Hugh Hefner. I mean, let's rewind it all the way back to King Solomon, even King David. It's natural for men to be lusting, to want to rack up as much as they can. I think it's part of the testosterone, it's part of the provider thing that all men have. It is our core to be providers. So I'm not coming down on Dan personally. I agree with a lot of his things, especially his stance on who, our greatest ally, and probably his view on the Holocaustco. Come on down. We've got a lot of great bargains on lies. Anyway, but I digress. So, yeah, this isn't a knock to him, but I think if one of the things, and I don't know, I have no time to research people, but my guess, I mean, I don't know how many kids he's got. I don't know what his family structure is, but obviously what he puts out is content. You look at it and he's not showing his kids, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that per se. I mean, there are a lot of people that will say, hey, you shouldn't put your kids on, don't use your kids on your social media site, So I don't know what his deal is, but he puts forth this idea that he's a player and that he's, racks up all these women and he's wealthy and he's got a yacht and all this stuff. And in our world, in our current schema, what currently goes as cool today, you could argue that he's kind of at the top of his game, but what are his kids like? How well adjusted are his kids? I mean, I don't think you should follow Dan, because what Dan is proposing, he's proposing this idea of fornication. He's a fornicator. As somebody who was a former fornicator myself, I can tell you that it doesn't solve anything, and it gets you into trouble. Because one of the things I heard on one of his recent videos, what he tells people is, he says, you should have sex with a woman as quickly as possible. I say absolutely just the opposite. You should put sex off until you are sure that she's worthy of being a wife to you, that you can marry her, that she is worth your time and energy in that regard. Do not have sex with her at all until you know that. And Dan is, I don't know what his personal life is, but I don't see any children, I don't see any family. That's not what he's purporting. I mean, I know he has a dad. I've heard him reference his dad in some of his past videos. So I don't know. I mean, the idea of Dan Bilzerian, is that even a real name? Could that be some false name, like bills, dollar bills? I don't know. I'm kind of making a conjecture there. Again, I'm not coming down on this guy personally. I'm just criticizing what he's telling people to do, because I think it's patently false. If you want to have a good marriage, if you want to have a long-term marriage with a woman that is a good fit for you, don't listen to Dan Bilzerian. And this brings up a great point for all of the pickup in the game community, the seduction community. I hate that word, seduction. I wouldn't even call it the seduction community. maybe just the attraction community. I think that's a better term for it. But you hear guys talk about body count, or what's your high score, you know? Nobody ever asks, oh, how many, what are your stats? That's what they should ask. What are your stats? How many women have you slept with? How many of them have you gotten pregnant and haven't told you? How many of them have you, gotten pregnant? How many abortions have you created because of your fornication? That's another good one. That's another good stat. Oh, here's another good one. How many sexually transmitted diseases have you acquired from your conquests? Nobody ever asks about that. And this is not me being white knight. This is not me saying, oh, how dare you do this to women? Women, how dare you? I'm not making that argument at all. Women are just as complicit as men, if not more. If you go back to the old Bathsheba and King David thing from the Old Testament, she was bathing on top of a rooftop. What? She couldn't find some place to be a little more, private? She had to be doing it out in the middle of an area where she hoped maybe that the king would find her. I mean, that is a classic example of women doing the monkey up the branch technique, I'm not going to get into all the backstory of that biblical story, but who knows? Like, her husband was a soldier. He was one of King David's soldiers. Maybe this guy was out raping, pillaging, and killing, and then coming home, and maybe he was broken. Maybe he had PTSD. Maybe he had all of these, demons in him because he chose to live by the sword. And maybe he wasn't getting things done at home. Maybe she was dissatisfied with him. Maybe she didn't feel like he loved her. So she was out exposing and shopping around, seeing what little beta orbiters are out there circling around. Who can I get? Who's my next victim? I'm not saying that women think like this necessarily, but you'd be surprised. A lot of them do. So I'm not making that argument, but I'm saying that there are good women out there. 1 in 10. 1 in 10. 1 in 10 are good and honest and righteous. It's probably maybe more than that. But like, if a woman is a Christian and she's been brought up well by her mom and dad, if she's got a good relationship with her father, there you go. That's a good start. Those are very good starts. But if you are in the cesspool, if you're in the swamp, as I call it, the sexual marketplace swamp, which is where most of these PUA people exist, they're just on the merry-go-round of, sex, and hook up, meaningless, empty sex. The hookup community, which is basically an offshoot of the pornography industry, which is prostitution, which is slavery, which is, it's all just a big hellacious mosh pit, for lack of a better term. So if that's what you want, though, if you want to have like some sort of harem, if you never want to have a family and you just want to make as much money as you can, and like have some women to, be your hood ornaments or whatever, and just have a plate spinning opportunity, just keeping your options open and never committing. And I suppose you could be honest about it. If you're honest about it, if you say, look, I am never ever going to have kids. I am interested in just having sex and having fun. I'm a playboy. That's me. If that's what you want, follow Dan Bilzerian. Check out Hugh Hefner. What's the other guy? Not the other guy, the Epstein dude. Stay away from that dude. That guy was a creep at JEW. So, Stay away from that kind of garbage. You don't want that. And you have to be really clear about boundaries if you're going to do that. I think the easier and the better way is just to adopt the courtship code. Be somebody that does courtship. Say, hey, I'm not sticking anything in you until I know that you're safe. I don't do that. I don't sleep around. Like, you got to qualify yourself to me, woman. And if we're going to enter a courtship relationship, it's understood that you are going to be faithful. Start by being, not having sex with any other guy, not going out with any other guy. I'm your dude. And if I decide at the end, at some point during our courtship, that I think you would be a good woman to spend a life with, I will propose marriage to you. And at that point, if you say, I accept your proposal, like, it's very simple. Hey, would you like to marry me? Yes, actually, I would. I would like to marry you. Boom, there you go. You are married at that point. Yes, you can go through and do this ceremony and have some attendance and do that stuff. Do that for your woman. She'll like that, and it'll be fun. You'll have a good time too. Do that, but know that that's marriage. Even before that, you doing this to her, that's that's marriage. That is marriage. That's the biological marriage. I'm not going to get into that right now. This video is getting a little long-winded, and we'll probably try to keep it under 15 minutes. But again, no knock to Dan Bilzerian. Like I said, I think back during my lost years, he and I would have been bosom friends. He would probably make a good wingman if you are wanting to do that. If you're just wanting to have fun and no commitments, he's your dude. But like, if you really want to sober up sexually, and if you want to build a good and solid foundation for yourself, I recommend that you visit my website, beyond-dating.com, or Beyond Dating as I call it, because I want to get you beyond dating now and in the future. Because dating it's a crappy societal practice that we currently are using. We need to get rid of it and replace it and put courtship back in its proper place. So that's it for this video. If you can, regardless where you're watching it, please like, subscribe, share. Do the stuff that will help to spread this message, because my mission is to save and improve the institution of marriage. So, as always, the light in me honors the light in you. Peace.